This fall's newest folly from Nickelodeon, Max and the Midknights, promises the epic quest of a girl who defies the odds. But can this book series adaptation catapult itself into becoming a new favorite, or is it bad enough to meet the dungeon? I'm Benzie Johnson Jr., I'm enthusiastic about television, and we're ready for an adventure. Based on a book series by Lincoln Pierce, author of the long-running Big Nate series, which was also adapted into a TV series that was just cancelled by Nick earlier this year, Max and the Midknights tells the medieval set tale of our title character, a 10-year-old girl who dreams of becoming a knight, leading newfound friends on period-typical epic adventures through a fantastical kingdom. The pickup was announced in November 2021, along with Rock, Paper, Scissors, which premiered earlier this year. The show's set for 20 episodes and premiered on the network on Wednesday, October 30th, though the series' first 2 episodes have been available on Nick's YouTube channel since August. It's the third new animated series to come out of Nick this year, 4 if we're counting Zoki of Plant Ruby being ditched last New Year's Eve, at a time when kids' TV as a genre has felt a little soft and uncertain. As with Big Nate before it, I don't have any prior familiarity with Pierce's work, so I'm coming into this without any preconceptions regarding how the books played out. The Big Nate adaptation didn't wow me too much, honestly. Back in my review of it in 2022, I found it competent but unimpressive, with a handful of qualms and kinks I felt needed to be worked out. So, does Max have what it takes to slay on screen? Let's take a look through the show's first 2 episodes and watch her work. The show opens cold with big expectations as Max wages a valiant battle against a massive dragon laying waste to a medieval township. Contrast to reality.
Good dream?
Yeah, the best.
Let me guess. You were playing a packed amphitheater, and the crowd won't let you leave the stage. They keep cheering, "We love you! Encore! Sign my baby!"
Yeah. You guessed it.
Max is the young companion to Sir Budrick, a troubadour, a kind of traveling singer and storyteller common in the time frame the show is set. And as Max explains in a fourth wall cutaway, he's not that great at it. But at the very least, he's following his dream. Budrick grew up in the kingdom of Bijovia, destined to become a knight like his father, before running away at 10 years old to pursue his singing career. To the extent that that's a generous description of what he has currently. Budrick left to avoid his father's expectations, and yet he seems to have his own ideas of what's in store for Max.
So, hold up. You're telling me you left all that to become a troubadour?
Of course I did. I had to follow my heart, Max. Why be what someone else wants you to be when you can be who you are? Like how we're both meant to be troubadours.
Yeah, about that.
The irony is lost on him. But Max shows her own promise as a quick thinker when a roving thief threatens their modest existence after another bad performance. But not everything goes to plan, and when their horse and cart are spooked away, Max convinces Budrick they should return to Bijovia, if only to regroup. But Bijovia is a bit of a different place than when Budrick left. The kind former ruler, King Conrad, never returned after leaving the kingdom to battle a dragon threatening the city. In his absence, his brother Ghastly took power, warping the land into an absolutist nightmare. The peasants are starving and poor, but dissent is gravely punished, so the townsfolk have been cornered into not fighting back. Cue the very logically discordant rock musical intro to the town. Much of this is explained by Kevin, a budding chronicler whose house Max and Budrick stop over at once they arrive in town. Max, of course, can't stand the thought of this repressive life, and her noble tendencies explode when she steps in to help 2 shoeless orphans, Simon and Millie, staring down a date with a dungeon at the hands of King Ghastly. She's quickly in over her head, and in an attempt to save her, Budrick sacrifices himself to the king to become his new jester, a thankless job that's had a lot of turnover lately. Like a Bush press conference in '04, the king doesn't negotiate with miscreants, and before long, Max, Kevin, and the orphans are on the run, looking to outwit the king's many guards and figure out their next move. The episode splits as the kids arrive to safety at the barn of Kevin's father, a man who handles horses. Max is dead set on rescuing Budrick, but it's not clear as to how. Luckily, Kevin's father manages to rummage up a summoning coin that calls on the power of Mumblin the Magician, a powerful sorcerer who served the previous king. However, Mumblin's been off his game a while, retired ever since Ghastly banned magic in Bijovia, and despite Max's pleas, Mumblin refuses to help. Despite the setback, Max still plans to storm the castle to rescue Budrick, whose predictably poor performance as Jester is quickly wearing out his welcome at King Ghastly's castle. The king's preoccupation with this afternoon's joust creates an opportunity, though the three kids beside her create a bit of a snag. Max doesn't want to see anyone else caught up in this mess, so she's planning on going it alone. Meanwhile, in the far-off future of the year 1979, Mumblin the Magician is moping around his retirement home, wondering about his purpose in life after the summoning snafu earlier. A little guilt seems to be starting to eat into him. Despite Max's intentions, the kids end up tagging along at the joust anyway, and all four are now battling for their lives in the king's favorite event of the day, the brutal Running of the Orphans, where the entirely unprepared quartet are staring down the big snout of a board. Max's cleverness gets them out of the joust, but it's not enough to get them away from the board. Unexpectedly, Mumblin steps in after seeing the kids in danger, managing to turn the boar into a bee. With the new ally, the five soldier on to the castle together. Mumblin continues to doubt his skills, and the kids manage to get close. At least they know where he's being held in the dungeon, but a ferocious sea monster holds them back from the rescue. Max's bravery and skill, and a little teamwork, are enough to defeat the monster, and despite their failure in this battle, the four kids are brought together by this experience. And Max reluctantly agrees to let the other kids help her, and together they become the Midknights, as so dubbed by Kevin. Meanwhile, Mumblin's presence does not go unnoticed by King Ghastly, or more specifically, his sorceress ally Fendra, perhaps setting the stage for a bigger battle later. Overall, this hour proves well-paced and a solid story. There wasn't really much in the way of glaring errors or issues I feel inclined to point out, which is a good start. However, I will have to admit that these episodes didn't really impress me when I first watched them. The conceptual bones are solid, but the execution just seemed to fizzle out for me. I don't know what exactly it is that does that for me, because this show has a lot going for it. Maybe I just wasn't really able to establish enough suspension of disbelief to really get into this. For the most part, the protagonists are likable and the kinds of people you'd want to root for, each having their own skills and a charm that makes them a valuable asset to the team. I say that with the exception of Millie. She struck me as too much of an idiot for her own good, and most of her screen time seemed to be devoted to the rest of the gang holding her back from doing something reckless or unhelpful.
We need a distraction. Oh, I know. What if I just ran around making new and interesting sounds? Yeah, I like where your head's at, Millie, but then you'd be captured. All right, yeah.
Typically, your Box of Rocks characters have some kind of positive aspect going for them, or they're side characters who don't have a lot of screen time. But I failed to see any redeeming qualities in Millie or her writing, and it's hard to tell what she really adds to the team because we weren't really shown it. Honestly, I haven't been this annoyed at a characterization since attempting to try Disney XD's Gamer's Guide to Pretty Much Everything back in 2015. The one kids TV show that I've seen that I wasn't even able to sit through a whole episode of because it was just such an awful experience to watch. A few of the leads on that show were just irredeemably bad in practice, including the similarly airheaded Ashley. From an artistic standpoint, Nick's finally found a way to make the CGI art styles they've been developing since Camp Coral, and Big Nate, actually work and look good. Fourth shows the charm, I guess. As you would expect, there are a lot of visual similarities to Big Nate in the character designs. The kids are a bit squatter by comparison, but the backgrounds, lighting, and environment design finally feel appropriate for the scenes and the format they're making, when they haven't on any of the recent CGI shows before them, though even those have shown progressive improvements over time. The environments and landscapes depicted are period typical, and the show makes an economical use of limited animation at times, in ways that make sense. The show's rock soundtrack, including seemingly an original song in each episode, is a welcome surprise that is unexpected from a show with this kind of concept. But in a way, I guess it fits with the iconoclastic nature of our protagonist. Rebellious, daring, and spirited in the tradition of the rock genre. There's a part of me that wants to like this more than I actually do, but it seems Max and the Midknights lives up to the mid in its name more than the Max. Its premise is solid, but the execution isn't as epic as the saying suggests. That doesn't make it a bad show, or even all that forgettable, but I get the sense that it might just run its 20 episodes and call it a series. That seems to be the kind of expectation this show is setting up for, and arguably the relatively small amount of source material from the books doesn't allow for much more. But it's not a great look overall when it feels like Nick needs more long runners. However, there's plenty of credit to be given for Max and her merry little band, and plenty of places where that credit is due. Take a look at the first hour of the show and come to your own conclusions about her valiant quest. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss more new reviews like my video on one of Nick's other premieres this year, Rock, Paper, Scissors, which you can watch up here or down in the description. You can support these videos directly for as little as $3 a month through my Ko-Fi, Patreon, YouTube memberships at benzie.tk/join. I'll see you next time.